Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Peter Clausi. Peter, thank you so much for sending me the document that came out of Carney's office the first week of February, titled Prime Minister Carney Launches New Strategy to Transform Canada's Auto Industry. Where would you like to start?
Well, let's start with where we were. There were federal mandates that 100% of all cars in Canada had to be EV by a certain date. Now, those of us in the industry always knew that was untouchable. It wasn't a question of if it was going to be changed, it was when and how. And the document that was released in the first week of February did change that from a mandatory hard sale mandate to emission standards. They also changed the grant structure so that any new purchaser of an electric vehicle or even a hybrid will receive a certain grant from the federal government, and those grants will be phased out over time, thereby encouraging people to buy now. The national EV sales mandate no longer requires 100% EV sales by 2035. And that is a major shift in Canadian policy, affecting everyone from the automotive manufacturing sector to the car salesman to the people who are running EV charging stations. It's a major shift in policy.
I noticed that they were also going to be investing in these transitions, and obviously they're really prioritizing this based on the amount of money that they're investing in this transition. Would you like to comment on that?
When cars first came out, combustion engines first came out, you needed gas stations to have gas and oil available to fuel the cars. At the time, there's a limited number of combustion engine cars because there wasn't enough oil for a lot of cars. Those networks grew. Esso, Standard Oil, grew because it had its own oil and it was its own distribution network through its own chain of gas stations. It integrated its supply chain long before it was a sexy thing to do. The federal government is now incentivizing people to roll out EV chargers across Canada. Whether that's going to be a government-owned EV set of stations or retail owned by an oil and gas company or somebody else, yet to be seen. But there is infrastructure money available from the federal government for this.
Yeah, I was reading they've got $3 billion from the Strategic Response Fund and up to $100 million from the Regional Tariff Response Initiative. Now, the next question, of course, is many people out there are going to be, why does this matter, Peter? Explain this to us.
It only applies to vehicles that are EV or partial EV that sell for under $50,000 and are manufactured in Canada. Now, the word manufactured is interesting. You have parts made around the world, and the final assembly is done in Canada. This will create jobs in Canada. It will create new skilled jobs. We'll need training, and we need people to do these jobs to build these cars that get sold within Canada based on Canadian materials. So this will have a great impact upon the economy, and it won't be a 1 day, 1 year impact. This will have a lasting multi-year impact on the Canadian economy.
Well, can I just start by saying, how can I buy a hybrid for under 50 grand, Peter?
There are currently two. There are currently two for sale in Canada for less than $50,000.
Okay, great. I also saw that they're going to be enhancing our national EV charging network. You did mention that in earlier question answer, but I think that's kind of interesting. Will that also be prioritizing Canadians, like a Canadian company that has charging stations will undoubtedly benefit from this?
Well, the devil's in the details. I can't tell from the policy itself whether it's the government that wants to roll out the charging stations or they want to incentivize a private equity third party to roll out charging stations across Canada. The end goal, though, is to get more charging stations across Canada.
I noticed it said, back to the training labor, that they're planning on providing an employment assistance and reskilling supports for up to 66,000 workers across Canada. And they're going to be investing nearly $500 million into that investment.
Right.
If someone's interested and say, hey, I'm a young person out of university and I'm interested in this topic, where would they go to find out if they qualify?
Well, if it were me, I would call General Motors. I go hang out in Windsor, go to the car manufacturing centers of Canada and get jobs within that industry. General Motors is a large employer in Canada, but some of those jobs are going obsolete and will need to be replaced. The union will need to replace those jobs, and it's in those centers that I think you'll find them. There's no policy yet on how to apply to the federal government for these jobs, how to find these jobs. I'm assuming there are headhunters out there who know how, and certainly the union will want to maintain its power by hiring people in these areas.
One of the critical points that Carney makes in this document is that this was created to establish a comprehensive trade regime that strengthens the competitiveness of the auto sector. Would you like to explain that to the rest of us on what he actually means?
Sure, there are two parts to that. First off, Canada has its own policy. We are our own nation. We're not simply going to parrot what other countries are doing. Secondly, this allows Canada to pivot from being dependent upon parts coming up through CUSMA, whether from Mexico or the United States. This is an east-west policy decision, allowing for the importation of more parts to be assembled in Canada, decreasing our reliance on one or two other countries.
So finally, Carney is focused on the auto industry. Do you think this is a wise decision on his part?
The green revolution is inevitable. How big it is still up for grabs. We continue to move off fossil fuels. We continue to move off combustion engines. You'll never see 100% EV in Canada. The distances in some places are too remote. The weather's too cold. The batteries won't function well. You'll need combustion engines. But in your urban centers, you could see going 100% EV in a relatively short period of time. If it's better for the environment, and it's better for our children and grandchildren, we should be doing it.
There was a quote that Prime Minister Carney adds at the end of this document where he says, Canada's new government is fundamentally transforming our economy from one reliant on a single trade partner to one that is stronger, more independent, and more resilient to global shocks. We are making strategic decisions and generational investments to build a strong Canadian auto sector where Canadian workers build the cars of the future. Now, here's the question for you, Peter. Is Carney duplicating what Trump is doing? Because it certainly sounds like it by that quote.
No, I think that the federal government is recognizing that we don't have in Canada all of the parts or all of the technology to make the parts to be assembling cars in Canada. So we need trading partners who have those parts, whether they're the rare earths magnets, the horn, the airbags, whatever. Canada doesn't make them all, but we're very good at assembling them all. What this document does is it creates more of an east-west trading relationship, whether to Europe or to China, without, as he notes, being reliant on a trading partner who has become increasingly unreliable.
So, Peter, what do you think is next?
I think you're going to see provincial changes as well. Not only in Canada, we have the federal government, we have the provincial governments that also have their own mandates. And the provincial mandates will have to scale back to more or less fall in line with the federal government. You can't have the province requiring a certain level of sales here, federal government here, and becoming inconsistent for the automotive industry.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Peter. That's Peter Clausi from the Critical Minerals Institute. He is a director. And for more information, please go to the following website. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.